everybody, it's Josh with the Tabletop Generals. Today we're going to be doing our Hackmaster character creation tutorial, and I'm going to be using a short PDF reference sheet that we've written that'll hopefully help smooth out the process for our new players. You can find that sheet on our website, TableTopGenerals.com, in the download section. Okay, jumping right in. The first step in the Hackmaster character creation process is that every character is assigned 40 build points. Now, build points are very important because they're what you use to purchase your skills, talents, proficiencies, and also to increase your ability scores at one of the stages here. Once you get that, you have to roll your ability scores. Now, in Hackmaster, you actually have to roll the scores in order, and the 7 scores are Strength, Intelligence, Wisdom, Dexterity, Constitution, Looks, and Charisma. Now, once those are all rolled with the 3d6 for each stat, you have to roll a percentile die for each stat in order again. And this is what's called the Fractional Ability score, which reflects your progress for each ability score towards the next level. After this, you get a chance to arrange your ability scores however you'd like. However, if you do choose to arrange them all differently, you don't get any build point bonus. If you only choose to swap 2 of them, you get a 25 build point bonus, but if you choose to keep them all as they were rolled, you get a full 50 build point bonus, which is very significant, as you'll find out later. Once your ability scores are all arranged how you'd like, we get to move on to choosing your race. Now, in 5th edition, they've added several more races from the old 4th edition, and the races that are available now are the Dwarves, Elves, Gnomes, Gnome Titans, Grell, Half-Elf, Half-Hobgoblin, Half-Orc, Halfling, and Humans. When you're choosing your race, you really want to collaborate with the rest of your party and your game master, because some of the races don't play well with others. So, for example, if you choose a Grell and everybody else is a human, that really wouldn't work out very well, and there are actually rules for taking a penalty to your honor score after each mission if you choose a race that doesn't fit with the other players' races. And to be realistic, if a Grell had approached a party of humans, he probably would have been killed on sight anyway. After you choose your race, we move on to choosing your class. And again, in 5th edition, Kenzer & Company has added a much larger selection of classes to choose from. Now you have available the Fighter, Knight, Paladin, Ranger, Barbarian, Thief, Rogue, Assassin, Mage, and then there are also 3 split class options, the Fighter Thief, the Fighter Mage, and the Mage Thief. Of course, there's also the Cleric class, but the Cleric class is very complex, and we'll actually be doing an entirely different tutorial just on how to make a Cleric character later. After you choose your class, you get to choose your alignment, and choosing your alignment is rather important in this game because of how the honor system works. The Game Master assigns you a certain number of honor points at the end of each session based on how you play your character, and if you play your alignment. So you really want to choose an alignment that you think you could comfortably play in the game. After you choose your alignment, we finally get to finalize your ability scores, and there are rules for increasing your ability scores using build points in the sidebar tip on page 6. Now, note that when you're finalizing your ability scores, in the tables, which we reference page numbers on our sheets, there are 3 of your abilities, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma, can give you bonus build points, but make a note that these bonus build points are only to be used in buying skills for those respective abilities. Those aren't free build points. After that, you get to calculate your starting honor once your abilities are all finalized. Now, to do that, you add up all of your abilities, including the fractional scores, as decimal points, and divide that total by 7, rounded down to the nearest whole number. Then you get to add in any relevant modifiers from your Charisma and Looks attributes, and that gives you your final starting honor. After that, we move on to determining your priors and particulars. This is your age, your weight, your family history, everything else. It starts on page 118 and goes over to page 123. Some of this stuff, depending on how well you roll, might give you an additional quirk or flaw. For example, a bastard who was raised in a convent would get an additional quirk or flaw. Next up comes the Quirks and Flaws, which can either be really complicated or really easy depending on how you want to play it. The easy way is you just roll randomly on the table on page 126. To do that, you roll a D1000, which is 3 D10s. one of them counts for the ones, one counts for the tens place, and one counts for the hundreds place. And you compare it with the table on page 126, and whatever it lands on is your quirk or flaw. And if you do it this way, you get the full build point bonus for each quirk or flaw you get. But if you want to cherry pick them, that's where it gets complicated, because then you have to read through the literally dozens of quirks and flaws, some of which have a half-page long description, and decide which ones you think would be best for your character to have. Now, if you cherry pick, you don't get the full build point bonus. For the first one you choose, you get half the build point bonus, and for any ones after that that you choose, you get half the build point bonus with an additional 5 subtracted from it. So you can end up with little or no build points from this process. After your quirks and flaws, we get to move on to your skills, talents, and proficiencies. Now, proficiencies in Hackmaster are quite a bit different from some other games where you choose a single proficiency and then you're proficient in a pretty wide range of weapons. With Hackmaster, you have to become proficient in each weapon individually. Now, there's 4 different categories of weapons proficiencies, which are based on the level of complexity to learn that weapon. There's minimal complexity, which only costs 1 build point to learn. Then there's low, which costs 2. Medium, which costs 4, and high, which costs 6. And again, that is for each individual weapon. After your weapons proficiencies are chosen, you get to choose your armor proficiencies. And these are, it's a little bit more standard. If you're proficient with 1 light armor, you're proficient with all light armors. And armor is divided into 4 categories. Light armors, which cost 3 build points to learn, medium, which is also 3, and then heavy armor, which is 4 BP. And there's a 4th category for shield proficiency, which costs 6 BP. After the weapons and armor proficiencies, there's a bunch of miscellaneous proficiencies, which can confer special attacks and capabilities, again, including our favorite that we mentioned earlier, the groin stomp. And these start on page 144 and are really worth a look through just to add that extra level of customization to your character. After proficiencies, we get to our talents, which start on page 149. These are wildly varying and reflect any sort of extraordinary skills or talents that your character might possess. With their expense, most characters will probably only be able to afford 1 or 2 of them, so you really want to choose 1 or 2 that will really make your character that much more playable for you. Skills come next in this section. They're the last in the section, also the most time-consuming. Available skills are dependent on your class and race, and some of your class or race bonuses will let you purchase skills at a lower cost. The first step in choosing your skills is to check your class and race for any free skills. That means you get to roll it without paying the build point for that dice. And all other skill purchases will cost BP for each roll of the dice, which are called mastery dice in this game. Use the table on pages 156 to 157 to find out how much you're going to pay for each roll of the mastery dice, and make sure that all your prerequisites have been met. The first purchase of a skill, whether it's free or not, will be 3 numbers you're going to add together. You add the base ability score for that skill, and for some skills they rely on 2 different ability scores, and you choose the lower of the 2 for any bonuses in this part. So you add the ability score plus a d12 penetrating, which means if you roll a 12 on that dice, you get to roll it again, and if you're really lucky, you can repeat indefinitely, which would be awesome. And then after you get that total, you add in your ability score modifier, which is found on the second table on page 194. Additional purchases after the first only use the dice, the mastery dice, plus your modifier. You don't get to add your ability score each time. And again, check the table on page 154 to determine what dice you used. After this, we get to move on to purchasing your equipment, weapons, and armor. This is the final step. The equipment chapter starts on page 192, and your character's starting goal should be finalized by this point, taking into account your class base plus any other relevant starting modifiers. For example, a bastard or an orphan would start with this number halved for the most part. There's really not much to say about choosing your equipment other than to remind you to not forget any tools of the trade your character might require. For basic equipment, there are a couple of nifty bundles of basic gear found on page 195 that you can just buy that and then build up after that for any character-specific equipment. Alright, and that's everything, guys. I really hope this was simplified character creation for you. There's a link to the PDF we use down there, or you can just go to our website at TableTopGenerals.com, where we also have the core rulebook for sale, as well as the Hackmapedia of Beasts. Don't forget to like us on Facebook as well. And this has been Josh with Tabletop Generals. Happy gaming.